Hey guys, Tarke here, and I wanted to do a quick review of Hidden Potential due to it coming to light with Kripp playing Hidden Potential builds, a few other things, so on and so forth. Now, since I'm also playing a lot of poison-based characters at the moment, it's fairly relevant to the builds I've been playing, blah 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 blah. So, as I've mentioned, anyone who's been watching Twitch recently knows that Kripp has recently been streaming a Hidden Potential-based Blade Flurry build. The whole idea of his build is get a bunch of flat chaos damage, use Hidden Potential, scale that up, be a Berserker, 40% more, scale it up, crazy poisons. As you know, if anyone been watching my builds, I've been playing have a bunch of flat chaos damage, scale it up, be a Berserker, have a bunch of more damage, do crazy poisons. So with all of that in mind, I want to do a quick comparison between Hidden Potential and non-Hidden Potential, how good is Hidden Potential, and give advice for anyone who wants to try it out. Now, off the bat, just because you're playing a Hidden Potential build, and just for anyone wondering, 20 to 25% increased damage for each magic, aka blue item you have equipped. Now, because this is just global increased damage, it scales everything. If, for example, you're an Ignite-based build, it will scale all of your fire damage, and then all of that increased fire damage gives you a large Ignite, and then it double dips your Ignite because it will scale the Ignite again. Exact same principle with Poison. So Hidden Potential is basically good for any kind of skill which is either very difficult to scale. So in the past, Caustic Arrow was very difficult to scale because this is before there was loads of chaos damage on the tree and loads of items which scaled chaos damage. So you used to see a lot of Hidden Potential based Caustic Arrow builds. So if you're playing any kind of double dipping based Ignite Poison build or playing something which is difficult to scale, this is something to consider. Now, the main way that I've been using double dipping to large extents in my build has been getting mostly just pure chaos damage and using essences of envy to have very powerful pieces of jewelry. Now, as you can see, the tier 7 essence gives 31 to 34% increased chaos damage. This is just increased chaos, meaning it will scale the initial and then the back end. Now, obviously, you need to weigh up each kind of item and the pros and cons, but 34% is higher than 25%. So if you were doing purely chaos damage, nothing else, then, having Essence of Envy jewelry would be better than having just blue items in a Hidden Potential build. That being said, even if you are using 2 rare rings and an amulet with Essence of Envy, that doesn't necessarily make Hidden Potential any worse. Unlike the unique jewels, which give you increased elemental damage for each one you have, there's no limiting amount on how much magic items you need to have equipped. If you only have 1 magic item equipped or 10 magic items equipped, it still gives you the 25% increased damage per. So really the only thing you need to weigh up is what is the minimal amount of blue items you can have equipped for Hidden Potential still to be worth. Now you need to keep in mind that a perfectly rolled rare jewel can have 4 things on it. So for example, for my build, I can double dip with increased damage, chaos damage, projectile damage. Right? I don't do AoE. If I did also do AoE, then air effect damage would be another thing to put in there. So for me, it's a life-based build. My perfect 4-stat jewel would be increased damage, increased chaos damage, increased projectile damage, percent life. That'd be my perfect jewel. So because Hidden Potential uses 1 jewel slot and is limited to 1, for Hidden Potential to be worthwhile, it needs to be better than a perfect jewel. So a perfect jewel will give me anywhere between 30 to sort of 38% damage, depending on how well rolled it is, and the percent life. So with that in mind, for Hidden Potential to really be worthwhile, I say you need to be using at least about 3 to 4 blue items, because you need to be getting that large damage boost out of it, and also you need to be making up for the missing defense. That all being said, you've still got helm, weapon, let's say using dual wield or quiver, offhand, belt, gloves, boots. That's still a lot of increased damage, and you can be using 3 rare pieces of jewelry, and Hidden Potential is still very much worthwhile. Another very important thing to know about this is this doesn't make Hidden Potential any worse. There's actually very good cross synergy. So for a build which does mostly chaos damage or entirely chaos damage, then having 3 rare pieces of jewelry is perfect. Another very good thing about this is most of the time when you're using Essence of Envy based jewelry or any essence, is you're crafting the gear yourself. So for example, let's say that you're playing Caustic Arrow and you want to use a Wither Totem. with a totem requires quite a high amount of intelligence. Most caustic arrow trees are sort of around the bottom right side of the tree. They usually don't have that much int. So you could say, okay, I've only got, say, 50, 60 int on the tree, and I need 120 int. What I can do is I can spam craft Essence of Envy on amulets, which give me some flat intelligence, sorts out my spots. I can cap out my resistances using my rings and my amulet. Most hidden potential builds really struggle with the resist because you don't do CI-based hidden potential builds. That's just way too difficult to get perfect blue gear, right? So you're nearly always life. That means you only have 2 slots to play with. You need flat life on every single piece, and then it gives you 1 other slot to cap out your resistances or give you flat stats. Doing it with the rare jewelry makes it suddenly very easy to cap, and if you're starting to use stuff like purities, because most chaos-based builds, they don't have very good auras to scale their damage. So unless you're going to use something like haste, which gives you more attack speed, which indirectly increase your damage, you have the slot open to use, for example, a aura which gives you some resists. So you can very easily get a weakness cap using rare jewelry, maybe using a purity or 2. Now, for anyone wondering, well, can you just buy envy-based jewelry for the cheap? Yes, you can, and I'm also going to very quickly show you how to search for it and how to track items, because in my last video people said, how do I track? So, for example, Hardcore Breach, Ring, increased chaos damage, that means it was envy crafted. Flat life, total resist, so I've just put 40 in there as a whatever. Press search. Okay, again, this is odd hours for people to be playing. You can see there are a few up here. There's this, for example, and you just look for what's good for you, so on and so forth. And then to track it, press this button. And every time an item that has those criteria I put in is listed, it will make a boop noise. You get a notification, you know to log in and buy up the item if it's good for you. So over the course of, a hidden potential build, you can either spam craft Essence of Envies yourself and track a bunch of items, very easily cap out your resists. So for that thing, you go, okay, great. But then you need to weigh in stuff like unique items. So let's say you're an AoE build, much like Kripp's Blade Flurry character. You then need to go, okay, well, what uniques can I slot into my hidden potential build, assuming I'm already using these Essences of Envies, so you don't want to drop too many blue slots. Well, for him, he wants life because he's a life build, he wants resist because he needs to cap his resists, he wants area damage because it's Blade Flurry, and he wants increased AoE. So in this case, he's getting 70 life, assuming a top roll, 12 auras. This already is as good or about as good as just a blue item, because you're expecting to get on just a blue item high life and resists. He also gets the 12% increased arrow damage. Yes, 12% is lower than 25%, but the utility of the 20% increased AoE sort of makes up for that damage loss. So if you're an AoE based build, you'd want to use Carcass Jack. Now, what if you're, like me, a projectile based build? Well, would I want to use Winds of Change? Again, it gives me that flat life. It gives me 50% increased projectile damage. You're looking for just global damage sources, which double dip your damage. And it gives me the projectile speed, which is nice for most projectile-based builds. Gives me a chance to knock back. Does have the slight drawback of reduced movement speed. Well, in this case, it's slightly more difficult because of the new base items which got added into the game. There are gripped gloves. If you rolled a 18% plus the 25%, then suddenly you're already very close to the 50% increased projectile damage of this. So then it becomes, well, I could get more life than 60. Let's say I get a high rolled one, so we're getting like 70, 80 life on it. Do I need the 30% increased projectile speed, or would I rather have the resists, the flat stats, maybe attack speed, and not need to worry about the 10% reduced movement speed? This will depend on a build-by-build basis. Do you need the projectile speed? If you're playing, for example, Essence Drain, then that projectile speed is very helpful. For the standard bow build, unless you're using slower proj and have no proj speed in the tree, you don't really need the proj speed, in which case just going for a blue pair of gripped gloves, that would probably be better. Let's say you're an ignite based build, well, you're probably going to want to get away with using an opal ring. As I've stated, you can use envies and essences in general to do rare pieces of jewelry. You can roll % fire damage on jewelry. So if you're an ignite based build, let's say you're explosive area, you would probably get away with running rare opal rings, and even if you were just, hidden potential, you would struggle capping your resist using a ring base which doesn't have that, implicit resistances. So even for a non-chaos damage hidden potential build, you're probably better off just going with a rare opal ring, getting loads of % increased elemental damage. And again, you need this non-specific damage increase And what I mean by that is it doesn't just say increased initial, because it's just increased elemental. It scales the initial hit and then the ignite later. Also, another thing to note is with these new bases, it is incredibly easy to actually cap out your resistances. Assuming you're using some rare jewelry, using some essence crafts, maybe running a purity, you have these two-tone boots which give you 20% jewel res, which is basically getting 2 extra stats on a pair of boots. It's now suddenly very, very easy to cap out your resistances, because all you need to do is just pick, you know, the base item which best suits your build's colors or your defensive types or just whatever resist you need at the time, and spam roll it till you hit high life and movement speed. Yes, it's a little bit heavy on the alterations, but it's very, very doable. With all of this in mind, hidden potential actually has a good amount of potential. I've been fairly tempted to mess around with it myself. I did have a little birdie tell me about Kripp's build in advance, so I did stockpile a bunch of perfect hidden potentials and a few other items in hardcore, because I thought, oh, I should probably play around with this, and I want to make sure I get these items before the hype train becomes so real and everyone's playing the build. Now, with all that in mind, I could just do my next poison-based archer using a hidden potential build. I might maybe explore using an ignite-based hidden potential build to do something slightly different. If you guys have any hidden potential builds that you really want to see, or want to have any other feedback or suggestions on the strength of hidden potential, then leave it in the comments and I'll get back to you. I'm Tarke, I hope you're all having a good new year. Have a good day. Bye-bye.